the riflemen and the priests. And the destroyer is also going to focus down on that priest, trying to take down the priest to slow down the healing, obviously, of the human army. And what the human player does here, if you're paying attention, is really just he focuses on the ghouls. He ignores the destroyers. Yes, those are the big bad tier 3 5 food units, but he just is going to ignore them. He's going to take out the ghouls. And you're going to see over the course of these two games, if you can take out all of an Undead player's ghouls, or a significant portion of them, or really eliminate his ground army as fast as you can, that makes a huge difference, because then the Undead heroes don't have the same kind of protection that they would normally enjoy. And so that Lich can be a very vulnerable and very fragile hero. And you're going to see here in just a minute that Lich is going to get bolted, and it's going to get saved once, but it's not going to get saved the second time around. Also, once you've eliminated those ghouls, your riflemen they have an advantage, because they're doing piercing damage to those medium armor destroyers. So that means they're doing double damage. And you got enough rifles, and you get them upgraded as these are, upgraded on their attack, they can help you deal with these destroyers. Now, you're going to have a bunch of them if your Undead player has a whole bunch of destroyers. But this is still fairly early in the game, really kind of the early stages of Tier 3 for the Undead player. And so, boom, he's going to lose his Lich there. And yes, the Undead player was able to do some damage, but he's going to have to run. I mean, he's down to 2 heroes, a couple of skeletons, and his 2 destroyers, which are still taking damage at this point from the rifles. So, time to get the heck out of Dodge, and we will go back to 1x speed in 3, 2, 1, 1x speed. So you can kind of just see a little bit of how that plays out by taking a look at the micro there and the choices that the human player made. I really just wanted to point out the fact you use Thunderclap, try to get that Mountain King in good position, use Thunderclap, slow down those ghouls as much as you can, and then just focus fire them with the rifles. Just pick them off as quickly as possible. Try and keep your priests in a good position so that your rifles can be getting healed while they're being focused, and hopefully the priests aren't getting focused right out of the gate, but sometimes that will be the case. Now again, the expansion here provides the human player some real flexibility. He's out-leveling his opponent so far. Both of his heroes are at level 4, whereas the Death Knight is at 3, Crypt Lord currently at 2. He'll maybe get 3 here before. No, I think he's going to be at 2 for a while. And of course, the Lich is currently dead. So, I don't even know what level he is. I think he was level 2 before he died. Yes, he was level 2. But now, again, just going back to what I was saying earlier, the expansion gives you some flexibility. So, you have some choices. If things have gone really well for you, and so far in this game they have gone pretty well for Shobu, alright, well let's get a little bit more aggressive. So what does he do? He comes over here, creeps out this goblin laboratory. Beautiful. He's able to do that. He's able to scan. He checks over there to the bottom left to see if the Undead player is trying to expand. He sees that he is not. He knows he has an economic advantage. He's been able to rebuild his army of riflemen and priests very, very quickly. And he picks up a couple of sappers. And here comes one sapper, and kaboom, down goes 2 ziggurats, just like that. Now the sappers, if you've never used sappers before, they can be a lot of fun. Granted, it's a very situational thing here, but this pretty much ends the game, because if this, it's over. Saturn had to TP back in. His army is hurting. He's got, basically those 3 destroyers, and that's it. And he cannot build any more now because he just lost 2.5 ziggurats. But those little sappers, if you've never played around with those guys before, they do 750 damage to buildings, and a ziggurat only has 550 HP. So if you can position one of them right in the middle of a couple of ziggurats, you can take down 2, maybe 3 ziggurats with one of those puppies. And notice how Shobu did that again. This is for the noobs among us. I didn't know this. The first time I tried to use Goblin Sappers, I had no clue what I was doing. I was like, sweet, I'm going to blow up this guy's base. And I sent like 3 sappers just into the guy's base, thinking, I'm going to just own this guy. And of course, the towers just owned my sappers, and So you can't do that. You can't send the sappers in first. You have to send your army in first, draw the fire from whatever towers he's got, then bring your sapper in kind of quietly, slip them in there, but bring them in one at a time, because if you bring in both sappers right next to each other, when the first one explodes, it will kill the other one. So that was a big fat waste of gold. So anyway, little tip there if you've never used sappers before. But you can see, Shobu in that situation, he had gained enough of an advantage. And now, that game was a little bit lopsided. I'll give you that. The next one we're going to look at won't be quite as lopsided. And by the way, you can get that next game queued up to the 1 minute mark while I ramble on here. Anyway, you use level 2 Thunderclap. That can be a beautiful thing for you. The area of effect on that, by the way, is bigger than the area of effect on Blizzard. So it really, when you get to level 2, it really is a pretty nice, I think, underutilized skill for the Mountain King. The Bolt thing is so tempting because you can take units out, you can take heroes out in a heartbeat, but against ghouls, when they're trying to get Ghoul Frenzy, they're trying to get that Unholy Aura, those ghouls will be so fast, you need something to slow them down with, or else all your rifles will be dead in an instant. I mean, your rifles, your priests, whatever you were using, they will all die a very gruesome death very quickly. So I'm getting the second game synced up here while I continue to ramble. So continue to do that yourself. If you're not already there, get to the 1 minute mark. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about that last game that I wanted to say. I think particularly when you're not at the highest levels of play, it's a really, really good idea against any undead player to make sure you got plenty of potions on your heroes. Golly, man, that's something I've learned the hard way, and something that you will learn the hard way if you don't do it. Whether it's healing potions that you buy at your shop, whether it's invulnerability, even scrolls of healing, just for emergency's sake. You got to really utilize your items very well against undead. And again, having that expansion will enable you to do exactly that, because you're going to have enough money to be able to afford to buy all these items. And they will come in very handy because obviously your heroes are going to get nuked, and that can really turn the tide of a game. Okay, this next game, we're going to get on pause in just a second here. I think it illustrates a slightly different strategy, but really the idea is the same. The concept in the second game is really the same. So, okay, you should have it paused at the 1 minute mark by now. We're going to get it unpaused here in a second from Lof Wangder's point of view. Wangder? I barely knew her. Okay, that was horrible. Why did I say that joke? I can't start this over now. I've already finished one of the games. I have to leave that in there. Well, I apologize. That was pretty stupid. Anyway, here we go. Unpausing in 3, 2, 1, unpause. All right. We're having fun now, boys and girls. All right. Same basic stuff here at the beginning. Same initial build. We're on a different map this time, Turtle Rock. Turtle Rock can be a little tricky with expanding. Because if you expand at one of those middle 4 spots, obviously you can be a little bit vulnerable there. And sometimes it can be tricky to get to one of the spots on the perimeter right when you first hit Tier 2. Those creeps are pretty nasty, and it can be pretty brutal if you get creep jacked when you're trying to pop that expansion up. So a good undead player is going to know exactly what you're up to. He's going to be expecting you to try that expo. So he's going to be checking, he's going to be sending his little skeletons all over the map, and he will be looking to find you as you're creeping that out. If he's smart, if you're an undead player and you're struggling with this matchup, then take that as a hint. That's something you should be thinking about. Know that the human player is going to try and get that expansion up right as soon as he hits Tier 2, and if you can catch him and creep jack him there, that can maybe even prevent him from getting the expansion up if you can out-micro him. But if you can't do that, you can at least slow him down and hinder him enough that you can regain the advantage. Because once the human player has that expo, the longer the game goes on, the more likely it is that the human player is going to get the advantage and get the upper hand. Because you've got double the resources, and that's probably pretty obvious, but once you've got that economic advantage, you are no longer forced to be the aggressor. Now, in the last game that we saw, he could be the aggressor because he had so decisively won some of those early skirmishes. But that is not always the case. So you see here, good Death Knight harassment, able to take out a peasant or two. I think he got a water elemental. But he does get a little too greedy here. He really, really, really wants to get one more peasant kill. Just a hint for all the undead players out there. That's only going to get you 25 experience points. Don't get that greedy for that extra 25 because it's definitely not worth it to lose your hero for that one extra peasant kill. So anyway, the human player will go back to his creeping now because now he can. He no longer has to really be concerned about harassment while the Death Knight is being revived. So he started out, the undead player there, apm.icon, he started out with a pretty good harassment. He found him right away, and he was able to get him to stop creeping. He was able to pick off some of those peasants. I mean, he was doing well, but he got too greedy. And that will set him back a bit because now the human player is able to creep quite a bit and will get his Archmage pretty quickly up to level 3. This is kind of a nice move by Loth Wangder. Gosh, now every time I say that, I'm not going to be able to think about anything but that stupid joke. Anyway, he uses the lightning shield on the water elemental there to just make really short work of that creep camp. I thought that was a pretty cool little tidbit. And he just kind of keeps moving along, creeping out all these kind of easy creep camps. And then he will head to the undead's base to take a look and see what's going on and see if maybe he can pick off a ghoul or two. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He can use the items that he has to his advantage, and he will be able to do a little bit of damage, although it won't be anything devastating. You'll see in this game, the undead player has teched a little faster in this game than he did in the previous one. In the previous game, the human player was actually ahead of the undead player in the tech department. In this particular case, the undead player is well ahead of the human in getting tier 2. And here comes the undead player to defend his base, as he is forced to do, and you just want to get the heck out of Dodge at this point. I would think, really, at this early in the game, it's next to impossible to really go into an undead base and do a whole lot of damage, especially if they do have that Nerubian tower up. It just makes it really hard for you to micro your units. He's going to have more ghouls than you have footmen. He's probably going to have skeletons on top of that. You're probably just not going to do a whole lot of damage. You might be able to distract him. You might be able to keep him from creeping, and that can be worth it in and of itself, but you just have to be careful. You don't want to get in too deep. You don't want to get too greedy. You don't want to lose your Archmage or lose too many footmen. So you can do that. You can try and distract. You can try and slow him down. All of those things are good. Just don't expect to go in there and do a whole ton of damage. So, he's able to slow his creeping down enough where he's got a nice level plus advantage. Well, probably right at a level advantage. And the undead techs straight to tier 3 before he does anything else. He'll get his Lich, and eventually here, as soon as he has the economy to do so, he will put up a slaughterhouse. And again, this is a player who's doing a ghoul build, and he is teching primarily to fiends. I'm sorry, not fiends. Destroyers. In the meantime, what are we doing? Back with the human player, Mountain King is going to pop out. Mountain King is rallied to the Arcane Vault. He will purchase 3 ivory towers, and he will attempt to expand ASAP. Really, what the human player is doing here in creeping this little green, he probably did not want to creep that Expo until his Mountain King was out, because that's decent experience for your Mountain King. So if you can expand and gain a level on your Mountain King at the same time, more power to you. And that's what he's going to try and do. And the undead player, knowing that he is going to be trying to expanding, is just checking those Expo spots, and here he comes. So well done by the undead player. Let's see if this guy can fare a little better than the last guy did.